Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. So in this video, we'll be discussing about or how to work with date and time date format, or let's say data types. Let's create a table, right? Let's use the database and then let's create a table. So we created a table named date records, created some insert statements to insert the data. So we have different types of date formats within that. Now let's select it and see which all do we have. So let's say select star from this, right? So we have different types of date formats over here, right? Now these are the most common date formats that you will come across. Now if you see what I've done, the data type is basically a varchar. So basically it's a string format. Right, so this is how you should import the date format, or let's say the time format into your database. Now let's first try to cast these, or let's say try to use try cast, try convert, and try parse, because try when we use try cast, then even if there is an error, it will give you a null record. So let's say over here, so this was a table from where the data is coming, the column, and then these are the three columns that we created with the help of this query. So these are null values because the try parse, or let's say the try cast, was not able to convert this into a date format. Instead of that, it gave you a null value. Now sometimes what happens, these date formats are country specific, or let's say region specific. So for an example, this one is a Finland language. So if I run this one, so now the date try parse is able to understand what this data is about. But then if you see, it's not able to understand this call or this row, right? So this we have to make sure that region specific queries needs to be made perfect. But then we have kind of, let's say, a list of region specific, let's say, language, I would say, AC. So these are the ones we can use to parse the date format. So for Finnish or Finnish, we use FI, right, to convert the, or let's say parse the date format or the string format to a date. Now last but not the least, what this query will do, basically this query will, let me just comment this. So basically this is creating a select statement, right? And then this select statement will be inserted into a new table, which we call it the date record parsed. And then when we run this, now if you notice over here, we will have a new table named date record parsed, right? And then if I select this one, let's run this one as well, select star from this table, it will show you the list of the string as well as the date format. And then if I go back to this particular table and then enlarge it or expand it, you'll see varchar as the date format which we brought in when we imported the data. And then this is a date format which we imported with the help of select star into query. This is how you can convert a string into a date format, and something similar goes with the time format as well. Right. So in this video, we'll be working more on the time format. So we'll be working on the date part, and then we'll be working on ltrim, substring, and then the concat functions. So in first, we will be working on the try parse to convert our string data into a time date format, or let's say time data type. And then sometimes when the try parse doesn't work, then we have to find some other way. So we will be working on them as well. Right. So to work on the time, let's create a small table which will have the records. Like I mentioned in the previous video, it's always good to create a table or a column with a string data type for time as well as the date, and then it's good to convert that time, or let's say the string format, into a date or time format. So we'll be doing the same over here. Use financial data. Since this financial data is already selected, you don't need to use it, but just doing it for the sake that you will. Now let's create the table. Create table. Let's call it time records, right? And then let's say records is the column name, and then let's give it varchar as a data type, and we will give it as max. So max is, so if you remember previously we were mentioning whether it's 50 characters or 10 characters, and here we will be mentioning it as a max. So the maximum number of characters can be taken, right? So yep, and this is how you create a table into CKC to comment this. Now let's insert some data, right? So let's say insert into time records, and then the values will be, let's give some space as well, right? So that we can use altrim and rtrim in the future, or let's say in next couple of minutes, right? So I would say 0, 7, 10, 15, or let's 15, right? Insert into time records is right, yeah, just making sure it's not incorrect. Let's insert two more records. So here I would say 16, 15, and then let's say 10, right? uh 10 and then 09. So these are the records that we will be inserting. That, so inserted. Now let's check. Since we have created a table over here, we should be able to see date records, and then we have time records. Okay, so select from this table. If you remember previously, I have mentioned a couple of times, it's always good to comment the insert, update, and delete statements, because if you run that again, then it will be a really big mess. So it's always good to comment these type of update commands, or let's say data manipulation commands, DMLs. Good. Now let's convert these. So if you see over here in the time records, these this column is a varchar. So varchar is basically a string data type, right? So let's convert this into a time format, right? So let's say record, and then try parse record as time, as parse record, record. Let's run this. Now if you see, this was a string format. Now it has converted it into a time format. You will not see over here properly, but this is what the try parse does. Try parse function normally converts a string into a time format, or let's say a date format, whatever we mention it over here. Now the problem, if you remember in the previous video when we were working with the time or the date format, is sometimes the try parse may not work, or parse may not work. The reason being, you need to have the .NET framework installed in your system. But if you're working in the remote server, the possibility of having installed a .NET framework is less, right? So this try parse may not work. So I will come on to that as well. So before that, let me run this query, and what we can do again is, let's try the date part, because date part is a good function to use in SQL. So what the date part does, basically it will take out hour, minute, and seconds from this string, or let's say this parse record, right? So let's do that. I will use this statement. So let it be like this only, right? So try parse is like date part, and then I'm trying to take out hour from this string, and then I'm using the date try parse. Let's close this, and then this is our hour, right? Let me copy this, and so we have something minutes over here, minute, right? And then we have second, and let's call it minutes, and then we have, right? So this should work. Let's run this. So what it did, basically it took out 7 from the record, or let's say the string, 10 as minutes, and 15 as seconds. So this is what the date part does. And then there are like many other things which you can do with date part. Basically you can use year, quarter, month, day of the year, and also there are like many other, let's say values, or let's say you can convert the data from this with the help of the date part, right? Okay, so like earlier I was mentioning, if you do not have the parse function available in the SQL as a native, so what you can do, you can basically take out these values, or let's say hour, minute, and seconds, with the help of let's say substring, right? So let's do that. Now, if you remember what we did, we added some space before this and after the string, right? So why I did that, because this is something very commonly being faced by the data analyst, or let's say the data scientist, because your data could have or can have spaces in the string. So for that, there are two functions that I do: ltrim, and then we have rtrim. So basically, ltrim and rtrim removes the spaces from the left side and then spaces from the right side. So let's use this. So why we were not doing that earlier? Because this try parse was able to do that for us. So, it was easy and we would not face any issues. But if you don't have the try parse, then that's the problem that you might face. So for that, what we will do, let me go back and take this out, or take this statement, right? So now suppose we don't have this, right? So what we can do, ltrim, no, we don't have this one, right? As data record. Right. So this is how you will see it. Now this had space. Now these don't have the space before and after ltrim and rtrim. So I'll show you why I did that, because now let's say let's go one more step ahead, and I would like to see the length of this column as L, right? And let's check the length of this as well. Let me take a copy of this. I'm doing this just to show you what is the length before and after L-tree. So let's take this like this one. Data record as, let's say it L record, right? Let's run this. So now if you see, basically the record previous to the L trim had 9 number of characters. Now after the L trim, we have 8 number of characters in the string. But again, it only removed one portion of the space, right? So for that, what we can do now, we need to do the R trim as well. So let's do the R trim. It's down. So we had L trim. Now let's add the R trim. So you can do both L trim as well as the R trim. So let's say R trim, and then you can do like this one, right? And R trim, R trim, this one. So now let's see what it says. It's the same. Basically, I think L trim do not had space. L trim, R trim. Did it remove the space from both sides? Probably. If you know what happened over here, please comment in the comment section, because what I believed was like ltrim and rtrim basically removes the data from left side, and then it removes the data from the right side. So that's what I was thinking. I could be wrong, so please do let me know. Okay, so now from this, let's take out the hour, minute, and second, right? So we take this statement, see, let's comment this, and let me take this out. We don't need this, and then we don't need this as well, right? Second. Okay, now we have 3 columns. Do we need ltrim? We don't need this one as well. So let's this. I'm not removing the altrim and rtrim function being used simultaneously. Let it be like this, but then you can surely help me out with the difference. Is it because of this? Okay, so we already have. Oh, let me think about it, because I think first, if we have ltrim and then if we have rtrim, I think rtrim should first come. I mean, should come first, if I'm not wrong. Now we should see somewhere like, let me just check this one first, once more, because I think I remember why this was like this, right? No, it's the same. It's the same. It is not making any difference. Okay. Now we will use a substring function. Just to take out, let's say this 7, 10, and 15, based on, let's say, hour, minutes, and second. Right. So for that, what I will do, substring And then first it needs to pass, it needs to have three parameters. So basically first one is a record parameter that we need to pass, and then we need to pass from where it is starting, right? And then the number of characters that we would like to have, so it's 2. Now let's make it as hour, right? Hours data. Just saying this, I mean, I added this data because it's a internal function, or yeah, hours is a function being used now by the SQL, so I do not want to face any error. So we have record, and then fourth one. Why we wrote 4? Because this one is starting from 4th, like the 10th, and then we have 5th, 6th, and then we have 7th, right? It should be 7 from here, and then it should be seconds, and this should be minutes. Right now this should work out from okay. So okay, now we have time, day, hour, minute, and second. Now, but if you remember, still this record is a string format because we are not using the parse function, try parse function. So for that we need to convert it into a time format, right? And for that, what we can do, first we need to concat this, right? And then we have to convert this as well, right? So let's do that. After this itself I will do, or do you want this to be, let's do it like this only. Okay, so we will concat these three. So let's say, how do you want to do this? See, there are multiple ways. Either you can create a subquery, or just for the sake of showing you, maybe I can add it as a column, right? So let's concat these three columns. So we don't need this one, and I don't need this one, and I don't need this one as well. Now, if you remember, or if you see, we have a colon over here, right? So we have to add that one as well. So let's add that after this comma, add colon, comma, and then here as well, right? I think that's it for this one. Let's try to run this, because I have this habit of running the query every time I make a change, because that will help me basically to have better control over the data. But sometimes that's not a good habit, because if the query is really big, then you might end up spending a lot of time just to run the query. Okay, so now let me give it a name as time data. Right now, what we need to do is, still this column is a string format. We need to convert this. So let's convert it into a time format. So for that, so the target type is the type format that we need to pass, and then the expression, right? So I'm saying that I need to make it as a time format. Let me just break this down to one. So I need to change this into a time format, and then that's it, right? So let's run this. Now this is a time format. If you see, there is a ending zeros. Basically, it shows that it's a time format. So I think this was a good video, because we were able to cover a good topic, because date and time format is something you will face a lot of problem. The reason being, I mean, it's a tricky data, and it's always good to have a good control when it comes to the date format and the time format in SQL. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.